Hey.
It's time for action, gentlemen.
Hey, this is Benny.
This is Josh.
He's alive.
I am alive. Thank God.
We are Nerd News. But today we're not doing news. We're doing a special little video. Just talking about some previous gaming consoles we used to own and maybe some favorite memories from them.
Yeah.
Starting from like way back to today. Okay?
Pretty pumped for this one.
Yep.
I'm a huge gamer.
So yeah, let's start off then. What was the first console you ever owned?
First console. Oh, jeez. Like first console that I bought or was given.
The first one you ever remember like having?
Ooh, that would have to be the T1 94A, or was it 99?
TI 99 4A.
TI 99 4A. Yeah, that I actually gave to him later on. That's the very first one we had it. Someone from our church or something gave it to my grandparents, and that was the first thing I ever remember playing.
Which technically it's like a home computer.
Yeah. Yep.
From the 80s.
I have no idea what year it's from. It seems old, but I
Yeah.
don't know. You know, it was cool. You could do like computing stuff on it. I think it had a calculator function. You could write code with it if you were that in depth to it.
You could do like anything with it, really.
Yeah, it was a computer. You could, but you would have to know the computer, like the code stuff.
You have to know the prompts and
Yeah,
everything.
yeah. Because you couldn't just go in and hit play. You had to write code to tell it what to do.
Which is really awesome. Yeah, they gave you a little book and everything.
Yeah. So,
Um,
yeah. Good.
Yeah, you owned it when you were a kid. And
Yeah, I grew up playing it, and I never wrote code because I didn't know that you could do that at the time. I remember playing like Space Invaders and it was like it seemed like an early version of Pitfall maybe, or something, but the games were terrible. They were
Yep.
so bad, except for Space Invaders, and I think there was one other game that was good. But I mean, as a kid, having something is better than nothing, and that was still pretty fun because I actually learned how to do things off of that because it had like a spelling function and that gaming function was okay, and it was cool to have. Nobody else had it.
Right after high school, I got into collecting a bunch of retro video game consoles, and Josh actually found the old TI 99 4A in his shed when he was cleaning it out, and he was nice enough to give it to me. And I spent a heck of a lot of time in the basement just messing around with that thing. You can write music on it. It was so cool. I remember looking up things online, like how to draw this picture on your computer and stuff. So, I mean, if you've never played on one or own one, it'd be worth buying.
Yeah, if you're into the like computing,
Yeah.
it's definitely not more of like, oh, that sounds cool, get it for my kids, but like, you have to have kind of some smart kids.
Yeah,
because,
it's not like you can just hook it up and play.
yeah, there's more to it. It's definitely a smarter kids system, I think.
And we just looked it up on eBay. Not too pricey if
No.
you're interested. I
It's
would
not at
recommend
all.
it.
Yeah, it's definitely cool. Especially if you're an older person that is kind of reminiscent. They're going for
Yep.
real cheap. You can get them. That's one thing I kind of liked about it is I was with a buddy of mine at their shop, and his dad was talking about, oh, you guys don't know anything. I used to have this little computer thing. I was like, it's funny. I had that.
Yep.
So that was yeah. So I do know what you're talking about. So that's pretty cool. What was the first gaming console you had?
The first one that I ever remember owning
Mhm.
was the original Nintendo, the NES, the Nintendo Entertainment System. I don't know where we got it from. I'm sure my parents got it from someone, but yeah, it was awesome. It had a bunch of cool games like Monopoly or Sesame Street, and of course Mario and everything.
Sesame Street.
Yeah, I don't remember.
That's probably one of the top consoles for people of our age, and
Yeah,
just people
probably.
in general. I mean, that's definitely one of the better consoles that came out.
I believe that one came out in '89, or was it a little early? Maybe '86.
I'm not sure,
But-
it was definitely a well-known console. And people still have them to this day. I used to have one. Are you talking? You're talking about the NES, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
the big gray one.
Oh, with the
Big
the
gray
big
box.
cartridges that slide in and
Yeah.
the thing comes down. I was thinking the Super Nintendo, but the NES was cool. The NES was pretty much the predecessor. That was the previous one.
The first Nintendo ever.
Yeah. So I mean that one was that one's cool. That one is definitely the better one. I always liked it because you could slide the cartridges and close it. I just felt it
Yep.
was cool. Like it was just always cool to feel cool putting this thing in here.
Yep.
And then then the Super Nintendo came after that.
Back
That-
when you could just see, that's a good one for kids because like
The Super Nintendo or the NES?
the NES, because you don't have to worry about the CDs. Well, at least for me anyway. I'm a
Mhm.
bad person with CDs. I just toss CDs around
Yeah.
like nothing.
It's
The
easy.
cartridges were just like they don't work. Just blow on them and stick them in.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember it stopped working around 10 when I was 10 or 11, and my brother and I just took it out to the backyard and destroyed it with a sledgehammer.
Nice.
Kind of wish I would have saved it now, but oh well.
Yeah, there's so many out there. They would produce so many. At this point, they're not worth a lot if you were to save them anyway. And they, excuse the cat. They, so you can find them pretty cheap nowadays, and they're still good for kids. They're not huge story-based games that you can play for hours and hours, but they're still worth playing. Worth getting for a kid to start on, plus they're not going to be $400.
Yep.
They're going to be maybe 40. And a lot of these shops, local shops, have them for real cheap.
It kind of forced you to use your imagination too.
Yeah.
Not awesome graphics or anything.
Yeah, and that's a lot of people now will bring up, as like a argument or a counterpoint of people saying, "Oh, this game's such good graphics," and then someone will say, "Oh, you remember when we played Mario and didn't have such good graphics? It was still a great game." And that's because that's what it was back in the day. It was based on story, like Zelda, Mario, Metroid, stuff like that.
Yep. What was the next for you?
The next system after that
Yep.
was probably like the Super Nintendo, maybe. See, fortunately, I grew up with a brother that was several years older than me, so he was lucky enough to get most of the systems, and I was around to either watch or sneak into his room and play when he was not home, because that's what happens. Because he was, wouldn't let me play. He's the older brother. These are mine. Don't touch it.
Yep.
But the next system after that was probably maybe the Super Nintendo, I believe. I think we had an Atari. Did I give you an Atari?
Yeah, you did.
So it probably was the Atari that I later gave to him yet again, I believe. What else? I've got your Sega too. Maybe.
Yep.
But yeah, most of the systems I had the Atari and the. I don't think I remember playing a lot of that. I think they had Space Invaders for the Atari again.
Yeah.
And
Atari is just one of those, just like mind numbing.
yeah.
After a while, just all the games were the same squares, bashing
Yeah.
into other squares.
Was I don't know if you know, but E.T. I believe was made for Atari,
Yep.
and it was voted the worst game of all time. It was just a super rushed game because they wanted it to come out and match the movie. And what happened is they rushed it. They didn't get all what they needed to get done, and the entire game pretty much consists of you running around trying to, I believe, phone home. But it's just a lot of you falling in a hole,
Yep.
and then you raising your neck, and then you would float up and get out of the hole, and you would walk around again. And it was just apparently terrible. I've never played it, but I heard it's actually worth some money now, I think.
Yeah.
I think it was
There was actually it was kind of an urban legend that
Yeah,
it was so
yeah.
bad that they went and put it in a landfill.
They
and
buried it, yeah.
Nobody thought it was true. This is urban legend because it's so damn terrible. And then just like last year,
Yep.
they actually found it,
Yeah.
and it's worth a shit ton of money now.
Yeah, that one specifically, just because it's got so much story to it.
Yeah.
Oh, this game sucks, so we're going to throw it away.
Yep.
But yeah, so that game was pretty bad. Yeah, the Atari, that was another good, kind of starter system, I think. I mean, if your kids don't like the very challenging or, game. I mean, I guess the Atari you could say is challenging in itself because it's sometimes so bad.
Yeah.
But back in the day, it was a huge improvement. It was a huge deal because this was one of the front runners, one of the pioneers. And a lot of people don't, go back and play it like, oh, this thing sucks and
Yep.
this and that. But at the time, that was huge,
Yep. I remember looking up actually about the Atari when it first came out.
Mhm.
The stores didn't know where to put it, so it was mostly sold in like like sporting supplies, you know.
Oh, really?
It's kind of
I think I've
weird,
seen
huh?
that.
Yeah, like alongside baseballs and
Because
everything.
I think that they had something. The pack. I think there was. It was just like how the packaged. It was packaged. It had like the pictures of the game system and then the accessories. I think kind of maybe confused them.
Well, I
'Cause
mean, it's not like they had a video game section either.
Yeah,
It's
that's
like,
true. You know, at that time, just, we do this. Can't
You
go in
know,
grocery.
yeah.
We'll put it in sporting goods. You know, it was pretty simple back then.
Yeah.
Now it's just completely different. Do you know what your second was, or?
My second one that I originally owned was the PS1. My brother and I got it for Christmas one time.
That was a good console.
Yeah, I actually have very fond memories of the PS1.
So that is a good childhood console,
It
the
is.
PS1. There's a lot of good games on there.
Yep. Specific games I remember are like Dukes of Hazzard. I remember
Okay.
playing that a lot.
You still have that, too,
Driver.
don't you?
Yeah. Driver 2.
Driver, yeah.
Yeah, I never played Driver 2 or Driver, but Driver 2 was awesome. I used to play that all the time with my brother and my dad. What was the other one? Spyro.
Spyro was awesome. That
I
was the
remember-
greatest game for PlayStation ever.
I remember my brother and I used to play Spyro all the time, and we didn't have a memory card for it. So we would just get to a point in the game, and then when it was time to go to bed or something,
Never
just
shut
like
it off.
just like trick our parents and just shut off the TV and
Yeah.
go to the store or whatever, just so wouldn't lose our place.
Yeah, it's the greatest move in history. Never shutting your console off.
Yep.
Because there are some of those games like I believe it was the Ninja Turtles game and the Batman game for Sega. I believe didn't have save points, so you literally had to either play it all in one sitting or you had to do a stop and go somewhere, do whatever, and then come
Yeah.
back. But the PlayStation's awesome. Yeah, it's definitely a good game if you want to get another game, if you want to get your kids into a kind of a retro game or something simpler. The PlayStation's definitely real cheap. You can find games everywhere for it. And like I said before, it's not all these games are not 400, or all these consoles are not $400. The older ones, because there's not a lot of technology for it.
Yep.
I also had a PlayStation at one time. I think everyone growing up kind of had a PlayStation because it was just at the time it was a good priced game, I think, or a good priced console. The games that came out were pretty decent. I think they had Tony Hawk for it. I think GTA came out for the PlayStation 1, maybe.
I'm not sure.
I know Final Fantasy came out for PlayStation. That was huge.
Yep.
I remember a game called Medieval. It was this like skeleton guy in medieval armor. He would run around. I still have the game somewhere. It's just like the demo disc, and that was pretty interesting.
Next for me.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I guess we can go to you.
Next for me was PS2. I'm not sure how I got it. Must have been Christmas or something, but
Yeah.
yeah. We got PS2 again, and that was awesome.
Yeah.
Just great.
Yeah. PlayStation.
Awesome
I think.
memories.
Yeah, definitely PlayStation. I think was probably my next one. I mean, it just at this point, I think it just goes in line with what was released. The gaming community is building
Pretty much,
steam,
yeah.
and everything's coming out, and people are like, "Oh, you got to get this next thing." And at the time, the economy wasn't super bad. People could afford to actually get their kid a console, and
Yep.
it wasn't super expensive, and it was just and you were definitely the cool kid on the block if you're like, "Yeah, I got a PlayStation 2." Like, oh yeah, we're gonna come over, we're gonna play it. And I remember this was back in the day when you could have a bunch of people playing on one TV. They had this. It was like certain games, like the wrestling games, like what were SmackDown or whatever the games were called back then. I can't remember, but they had at least my brother had a connector that you would plug one of the connectors in the PS2, and it had a big brick.
Yep.
It was like this big, and you could hook 4 more people into that, so you could be playing 6 people at a time on one TV.
Yep.
That was a lot of the wrestling games and stuff like that. And those were cool, just because you could play so many. On the newer consoles, you can't really do that.
Yep.
Which I'll get into later. It's kind of one of my pet peeves.
PS2 is kind of where I stopped. That's
Getting
the
consoles?
newest console that I have. The
Yeah.
PS2.
Yeah, and if you've watched one of our other podcasts, we state, I think maybe twice, that PS2 is the highest selling console of all time. So it's definitely a fan favorite of most people.
Yep.
And it definitely launched the Sony versus Xbox kind of thing, Sony versus Microsoft.
They've just got like so many cool games for PS2, just countless awesome radical games.
Yeah,
Some specifically that I like were like, of course, San Andreas.
Yeah.
GTA, San
Grand Theft
Andreas.
Auto, yep.
What else?
It's hard to decide. I mean, there's a lot out there, and it's, you know,
Battlefront 2, Star Wars Battlefront,
Battlefront,
2 is one of
yeah.
my all-time favorites.
yeah. Oh yeah, did you ever have a GameCube?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, I just
actually.
thought of that when you said Star Wars.
Yep.
A lot of the Star Wars games that came out or a lot of good Star Wars games were for GameCube.
Yep.
Like Rogue Squadron. I think that Rogue Squadron for GameCube. There was one Star Wars game that was really good for GameCube. The Lord of the Rings games are the bomb on the GameCube. I don't know if you've ever played it, but that's where I first played the Lord of the Rings games, and they were awesome on there.
And you can't talk about GameCube without mentioning Super Smash Brothers.
Yeah, man. Yeah, Super Smash Bros. That's one of the most recycled games, along with Mario and Nintendo. But people still keep buying them. It's still a big deal.
I need to buy it now.
A GameCube?
I miss it. If only just to buy Super Smash Bros.
Yeah. If you get a GameCube, you have to buy Lord of the Rings. It's kind of like a hack and slash, but it's still a top end game for the GameCube.
Let's see, what else we got? 64? You ever own a 64?
My brother had a 64, and I would play it every once and again, and I kind of inherited it after a while. It was just left at the house, so I did have one. I remember having an old friend when I was growing up. We had this No Mercy Nintendo 64 game, the wrestling game, that we stayed up real late, probably 3 in the morning, which is pretty late, especially for being a kid. And we became the tag team world champions. We did a little career or whatever, and that was super fun and super cool. I remember doing that. And the wrestling games for 64 were awesome. Because that's back in the day when wrestling was extremely popular. You grew up, pretty much watched it. GoldenEye, probably the best game, arguably the best game for 64.
Super Mario 64, which is one of the better ones.
Oh yeah.
Rogue Squadron on 64, I actually have that right now.
Yeah.
That was another one that I bought after high school, and I got into that.
What was the other one? There was one other game that was like a shooter game that was kind of like 64, but it was this woman, and she had an alien friend or something. It was Dark something. I can't remember the game. My brother would kill me for not remembering this. But yeah, he was a big fan of 64. I remember my brother used to have a small notebook like this. I don't know if you can really see that, but they had a small notebook, and it was just full of like cheat codes and like stuff where he was at. He had his little wrestling stats, and if you flip through there, it kind of looked like chicken scratch and just insanity written on a page. But it was like when you asked him about it, he was like, "Oh yeah, that's all my stuff," and he kept meticulous notes. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember my brother would save up like his allowances for weeks just to buy a book of cheat codes for PlayStation.
Yeah, for the PlayStation.
For Xbox.
Yeah, you remember that? Yeah, cheat codes. Yeah, those are the thing. Or the big card shark that you would get the cartridge.
He had one of those too.
Yeah, the 64 was cool. You ever had a Dreamcast?
Nope, I think that's all the consoles I've owned actually.
Oh really? Yeah, I've never actually owned a Dreamcast. I don't think my brother had one. Now that I think about it, but I only played it a little bit. I remember playing the Dreamcast more at a friend's house, and I don't remember being too impressed just
I've heard
because
it was terrible, yeah.
because he didn't have, I don't think, that many games. So the Dreamcast wasn't it for me. Sega was awesome, obviously.
Oh yeah, Sega Genesis, that too.
Yeah. You have a Sega right now, don't you?
Yep.
Yeah, which he received from me. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. All his games come from me, apparently. The Sega was cool. Sonic, obviously the big thing for Sega.
Yep. There's that terrible Batman game.
Oh yeah, the Batman game. I remember getting to a point to where you had to shoot your grappling hook up, and I don't think it came with any instructions.
Like right in the beginning.
Yeah, that's
the very first level. I still can't get past it.
Yeah, no. What do you remember what the Nintendo or the Ninja Turtles game was for? That was voted like the hardest game.
Yeah, that was on NES. I actually had that as a kid.
Yeah.
It's fucking torture.
Yeah,
I've never gotten past the dam level. I take that back. Recently, I played it, and I actually got past it, but died like right after.
Oh yeah, yeah. This, for those who don't know, this is a Ninja Turtles game that apparently is for the NES, and it was just recently voted the gaming consoles, hardest game. And I think it's because they didn't have save points, and you just couldn't really.
Yep.
Maybe was it a bad game? Was it fun to play, or was it just hard?
It was fun. It was very fun. Just like up until that dam level was just fucking outrageous. Like if you if you mention this game to anyone who grew up with that console, they just have like Vietnam flashbacks. Of
Yeah.
just like,
I've got some of those, yeah, in certain
or you
games.
just spend like hours rocking back and forth in a corner, just crying.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, before we get into Xbox, mainly because that's my area of expertise, were there any absolute favorite games that you had for any console? You know.
As hard as it was, I did like the Turtles game.
Yeah. Just because you probably got fond memories trying to beat it. Is there
Yeah.
that challenge?
Yep. I love like all of Mario's, like Super Mario 3, probably my favorite. Battlefield 2 is awesome. San Andreas. I really like Sims busting out.
Yeah, I never got into Sims.
I like it. I don't know. That was one I grew up on. Spyro is fun. Yeah.
Was there a least favorite game that you just absolutely hated, you despised, but yet you still had it? You know, you still kept it. Maybe even tried to play it every once in a
I
while.
still have that Batman game.
Now that's the one you're going with, the one that you absolutely hate.
That one's pretty hard. I also have Toy Story for Sega.
I don't think I
Pretty
played that
hard.
one. See, the game that I hated. I don't remember owning a game that I absolutely hated.
Yeah.
There was one game that I downloaded that I was super psyched for. It was a game for Xbox, I believe. It was a game called Black Site Area 51. It was this shooter game that you had to kill these aliens that came down, or either escape from the Area 51. Something I don't really remember, but I remember like, oh, this looks awesome. The video looked awesome. The pictures looked awesome. And I download it and I go to play it. Garbage. Worst game I've ever played. The controls are really, really bad. It's just that was probably the worst game I've ever played so far. These style games here are probably my favorite. The shooter games. This one's actually for Sega.
Light gun.
Yeah, the light gun. These are probably one of my favorite style games. Is the actual shooters. They're probably definitely my favorite. Even like
Duck Hunt, probably one of my favorites too.
Duck Hunt. Yeah, I mean there was one that I had called Time Crisis,
Yeah.
and that was really cool. I had that for PlayStation 2. Had the guns. I know my brother didn't want me to buy it. I don't know why, but I remember. I think it's because it was like $80. It's quite a bit of money, but it came with the game and the gun, and I was hooked on it. It was so fun. Those are probably my favorite types of games, if you can afford them, because they're kind of expensive. But all-time favorite game is probably Gears of War, just because I don't know. That's one of the big introduction games that I remember playing. I kind of took a break from playing, and then my brother had the 360, and my first experience with Gears was I walk into my brother's room, and he's actually playing the boss. He's actually playing the very end boss. Get out of here, cat. And he was having trouble beating it, and I walk in there's like, hey, let me try. He's like, nah, I'm trying to beat it. So he finally just keeps dying, and then he's like, fine, I'll let you try. And my very first experience, I beat it on my first try. I've never seen my brother so pissed in my life. And so I beat it, and then he gets mad, and then I go through and play the whole game, and that's when I first got into it. Yeah. I love Gears of War. But you're not big into Xbox, are you? Or Microsoft?
Nope, I've never owned an Xbox.
No. It's definitely a more, I don't want to say hardcore, but it's more of a competitive game style. PlayStation definitely is solo campaign, story mode, kind of have fun with your friends, just hanging out.
I'm not a great video game player, so
Yeah.
that's probably why I go for those games.
Yeah, there was. I'll tell him a story here. Benny probably doesn't want to talk about this. There was a time we were at our friend's house, Mike. We were in his garage. I don't know if you were playing now that I think about it. I was playing. I think some other person might have been Dylan. I was playing one of our friends, and we're in his garage, and the TV is up against the end of the garage, and behind us there's just a mirror sitting here. You remember this now?
Yep.
There's a mirror, and I'm facing the mirror, playing them in the mirror, on the TV. And I remember demolishing them. I still beat all of them through the mirror, and then I couldn't play anymore because they said it was no fun. I was too good, and that was Gears of War.
Whatever.
But that was pretty fun.
You're an asshole.
Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty fun. Yeah, the Xbox, the original Xbox is really cool. I liked it just because it was a more competitive, get online and play kind of thing. That introduced Halo, which brought in the Halo parties, the LAN parties, everyone coming over, system linking, staying up all night playing those. And I know you've played Halo with us sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of fun.
It's pretty fun with people. With other
Yeah,
people
with people, you know.
that aren't douchebags and just like murder you.
Yeah. I don't know what he's talking about. Yeah, then came the 360, which was a pretty big deal, and now the Xbox One's out.
Yeah, we
which-
should probably save those ones for
Hmm?
another one since they're so new.
Yeah.
We could just do a review. Oh, you already did a review.
I did one. Yeah, I did one review of the Xbox One. You can see that online. It was supposed to be a quick review. It turned out to be like over half an hour, just because I couldn't stop talking about it. But yeah, we love games. I mean, I love games. Retro gaming's cool.
Yep.
Probably gonna try and wrap this up. I'm guessing here.
Yeah.
We've talked about games for quite a bit. We get
Pretty much.
excited about stuff.
Yeah. I think that's part of being a nerd, though.
Yeah, I love being a nerd. One quick note I want to ask: what is your opinion of the just plug and play TV console things?
Yeah.
Do you consider those video gaming, or are they just? What do you believe with those?
It's really pedestrian or what?
Huh?
Also, maybe comment some of your favorite memories
Yeah, for
from your
sure.
old consoles.
Yeah, because I'm sure all of us, plus plenty of us, got those plug and play TV
Yeah.
sets, or the PlayStations for
Yeah.
Christmas. I was
Or-
always kind of mad when I got those.
Or maybe some of your favorite games or your favorite gaming systems. Anything, man.
Yeah,
really.
we can talk for days
Yeah.
on gaming.
You
Yeah.
just shoot us a question or some kind of comment on our page or YouTube account. We'll talk right to you. Keep it going. Ask us anything you want.
Yeah, we'll be here. We've got the Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. So just let us know, and we love trying to chat with people and talking to people.
We're not desperate.
Yeah, we're not desperate. Yeah,
Wow.
so Facebook.com/nerdyknowledge, YouTube, Nerd News by Josh. Twitter is Nerd News by Josh as well. Just give us a like, talk to us. We'll be here. Watch our videos.
Yep.
We'll get back
So-
with you.
So yeah. See y'all later.